In this week's episode, I am going to show you how we built this monster blue epoxy table, and I'm going to show you some behind the scenes footage of how we delivered this beast. In this week's project, we are going to build a blue epoxy table. I am going to show you our methods and techniques we took in building this beast. Now, one of the questions we receive a lot from our international viewers is what wood species are we using? And this specific wood species is called Matumi, and it's only sourced from the country I'm from, South Africa. It's a beautiful piece of wood, and it's a very popular wood species underneath the epoxy suppliers that's building tables. And you will see the end product. It's going to look magnificent. Starting off our project this week, we are going to cut our slab to size. And as I always mentioned before, always make sure to cut your piece of wood and to build your tables slightly bigger lengthwise and widthwise. This is just going to give you room for error. If you're going to make a mistake for whatever reason, you do have space to play with. By cutting our slab to size, I'm using my Festool HK85, and as you can see, I'm cutting with one go. Not one cut, not two cuts, one cut, and this is a really thick slab. So what I'm doing now is busy measuring my amount of epoxy I'm going to use for this project. And calculating epoxy is a really simple calculation of length times width times height. I'm not going too much into detail on how I calculated the epoxy, but I do want to recommend down in the description of this video, we do have an online epoxy masterclass available. It's about 3 hours of video footage where we're going into detail on how we build all our tables, showing you our methods and techniques we use. It's really going to help you starting off your epoxy career, and if you already started epoxy projects, it's honestly just going to help you with extra tips and tricks and just showing you how we build all our tables. Go and check it out. I am also going to leave a short preview at the end of this video just to give you more information on this course. Moving on with the video, the specific epoxy we are using is called Crystal 100. It's a epoxy that's locally sourced from the country I'm from. It is a deep casting epoxy, but we are not doing deep casting epoxy. Just for one reason, is that the typical tables we build is transparent tables, meaning that air bubbles you will see very easy. And with our experience, when we do a deep casting epoxy, it's easier for the air bubbles to get trapped. So we use deep casting epoxy and we cast in layers. So for this specific project, we ended up casting 4 layers. And the client went with a vibrant blue, which is a beautiful color, as you can see. And another tip I want to give you is before you start mixing your epoxy, we would typically leave our epoxy batches in the sun for a couple of hours just to heat the epoxy up. Not the part A and part B together, leave them separately in the sun. So when you're going to mix your epoxy in one bucket, it is going to make the epoxy a little bit hot, meaning that the epoxy is going to be more in a liquid water form. That's going to give the air bubbles more time to release. And now just placing our slabs into our mold, and there's obviously a lot of steps I am skipping here, so don't expect that after watching one video you are going to be an expert in building tables. There's so much steps we skipped, like applying the silicone inside the corners of the mold, applying the wax release mold agent to make sure once you're going to remove your epoxy table from your mold that the epoxy is not going to stick to the mold. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of how we built this monster table. Now, pouring our epoxy, the one tip I want to give you is when you're going to pour your epoxy, pour slowly. It's just going to help to reduce the air bubbles. And after we casted our first layer, we waited around about 18 hours to come and pour the second layer. Now, the way we previously done it is we would wait for that first layer of epoxy to set, and that would take normally around about a day or two. Then we would come back, we would sand that layer of epoxy to give our second layer of epoxy a better bond between the two layers. Now, the new method we use is we would wait until the first layer we casted becomes tacky. So it's not gonna set hard, it's gonna become tacky. And once it's tacky, then we would come and pour our second layer, meaning that those two are going to bond 100%. It's like you're going to do a deep casting epoxy, because the new epoxy is going to bond really good with the first layer of epoxy that's going to be tacky, if it makes any sense at all. And always remember, once you pour your epoxy, we leave our epoxy for around about 20 to 30 minutes, wait for most of the air bubbles to rise up. Then we will come with our gas torch flame. We would run it down quickly to remove all the air bubbles. We will repeat this step maybe 3 to 4 times, and you will see you will end up with no bubbles at all. And the process for pouring our epoxy takes around about 4 days in total. And then we would leave our table for around about 7 to 10 days for the epoxy to set fully. So there's obviously a step we skipped here before we cutting our slab to size, is to make our table flat. We've got a local CNC supplier we take our tables to that helps flattening our tables both sides. It's just saving us a lot of time instead of doing it on a manual router sled. Now, we will obviously invest in a CNC machine in the far future, but that's the far future because the CNC machines is really expensive. But for the meantime, we will just keep on using our local CNC supplier. Cutting our table to its final size, I'm also using my HK85 with a fine blade. A fine blade is going to give you a much more smoother cut when you're going to cut your table to size. After cutting our table to size, this product you see here is called Crystal UV. And what I love about this project is once you apply the epoxy into all the small little cracks and holes and imperfection on your table, when this epoxy comes in contact with UV light or the sunlight, it literally sets in a matter of seconds. And it doesn't really give the epoxy time to penetrate into the wood. So the epoxy will penetrate into the crack and hole, but the overflowing epoxy is not going to penetrate into the wood, meaning there's not going to be a stain afterwards once you're going to come and sand your table down. After I closed all my imperfections on my table, I'm going to sand my table to 180 grit. Once we're done sanded our table down to 180 grit, then we're going to come and give our table a small 45-degree chamfer with our palm router. Now, the reason we stop at 180 grit is you will see once you're going to give your table a small 45-degree chamfer, the bearing of the router bit is going to make a small little groove on the side of your table. Now, once you're done routering your edges of your table, then only you're going to continue sanding your table down. And this specific client went with a frost smoky look, meaning we are not going to sand our table down all the way to 1500 grit and polish our table. We are going to sand our table down to 400 grit, then we're going to apply the oil. And I just want to address a small issue I found on the channel, is that unfortunately there are some bad apples that subscribe to our channel. We receive around about 99% positive comments, but unfortunately there is that 1% that will always leave critics and bad comments saying like, this is not a YouTube DIY channel and it's too complicated and so forth. And for every single person that knows me and knows where I come from, know that I'm working insanely hard to make this YouTube channel work. So just to give you a little bit of background where I come from, we had a construction company for around about 12 years and I was forced to close the company down due to COVID. Now, this is easier said than done. Just imagine you got your own company for 12 years and you had to close it down. And after that, absolutely don't know where you're going to in the future, what you're going to do, where you're going to get your next income from. Anyway, 2020, when COVID struck the whole world, in our first hard lockdown, I woke up one morning, randomly decided that I'm going to start a YouTube channel. With no video experience, I don't know how a camera works, I don't know how voiceovers works, I had no experience whatsoever on how to start a YouTube channel. I literally had to Google and YouTube every single thing to make sure I can actually launch a YouTube channel. With the thought that I absolutely love helping people and I absolutely love building stuff. I love working with my hands. I love creating and I just love to help people overall. So I started in our first lockdown in 2020 and the channel has grown so much and it's becoming a really pleasant experience for me to help other people. And for everyone that's following me right from the beginning would know that I already moved shop like 4 times. I had to employ 2 people. I'm already looking at getting a bigger shop and employing another carpenter to help us. Now, where is all this coming from? So I started the channel 2020 and it grew into something special. And I was semi-forced to start a custom fabrication company called Craft House, so we can actually fabricate really unique pieces. As you can see in my channel, all the pieces we build is really something special. So we've got DIY with Greg, helping people out on YouTube. Then we've got a company called Craft House and it's really busy growing into something special. So for all the bad apples out there that's leaving bad comments and critics on the channel, rather go and speak something positive into someone else's life than to go and leave bad comments on other people's videos. Just next time you're going to cut a piece of wood and you cut it skew, I want you to think of me. As I mentioned before, I am not a videographer expert, so if you guys do have any recommendations for me on how to improve myself on videos, content or whatsoever, leave me a comment down below. I would really appreciate it. So before I'm going to leave you with the final product, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of this table and what would you have done differently? And before you guys gonna head out, make sure you stick around until the end of this video. We got this really cool epoxy promo masterclass we want to share with you. And make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you like this video. Leave me a comment down below. What do you think of this table? It's honestly just helping with the algorithm, and it's helping us to produce more content. We still have an end year goal of reaching 100,000 subscribers. We are already halfway there, and I'm really passionate to grow this channel into really something special and to help others. Thank you for this week's episode. I'm checking you guys out next week with another super cool project. Cheers, guys. Welcome to this online epoxy masterclass. Moisture content. You hit right into the core wood species to remove the bark with an aggressive steel wire brush. Table design, slab preparation, building process, epoxy mold. Release agent wax, calculate epoxy. 7, 8, so we got 16 points. Mixing epoxy, color consistency. Whether to seal your live edges or not. Pouring epoxy. Sanding between layers, sanding grooves inside your epoxy. Dealing with bubbles. Maximum depth, curing time. Removing the table from your mold. Our local CNC supplier. Start sanding, cutting your table to size and edges. Filling the cracks and holes. Smoky finish, high gloss see-through finish. Wood surface finishing, tabletop supports. To drill into our wooden section. Our online epoxy masterclass is finally here. It's 4 hours of masterclass where I'm going into detail on how we build all our epoxy tables. Where I'm going to teach you from start to finish how to build a epoxy table successfully. I'm going to show you all our methods and techniques we take in our everyday business building epoxy tables successfully. Down in the description of this video, you're going to find the details on how to purchase this masterclass. You don't want to miss this one.